Thank you, Chair Carter, for holding this very important hearing on securing our critical material supply chains. And I want to thank our witnesses for being here today and sharing and testifying as to what is actually going on in our space. We should not be reliant on China for our critical material needs here in the U.S. I met with the home builders in our state yesterday, and our state is the #1 state, Georgia, to do business in. And the last 10 years, we're growing rapidly. Have a tremendous demand for housing, and we're meeting that demand. The problem is we can't get transformers. So the Department of Energy has mandated this new transformer and single source supply here, and they can't get the materials from China to make it. So we're sitting there with 7 houses and no power to them. And even the power company says, I don't know how we're going to hang these things on the poles. These are decisions coming out of this administration that lack all common sense, total common sense. You know, it's a matter of national and economic security that the U.S. be a leader in the critical material economy. We cannot be dependent on other nations. We need to bolster our national critical material supply chain in the mining and processing. And like I said, we've heard that we one time led the world in that. Mr. Strait, do you believe that regulatory environment would even allow for a new metal smelter or processing facility?
The regulations allow the use, but getting it permitted will be a long process.
How can we, Congress can fix that, right? I mean, if we're passing permitting reform, we just passed it out of the House on nuclear facilities. We have the ability to do that, and rather than be subject to an agency who is the 4th branch of this government who is making these regulations on their own without congressional consent. So would that be a fix to do it by law?
That would be helpful. And it
Yeah,
would be helpful
if we could get it through the Senate and get it through the administration. Dr. Faust, what would be the implications for the U.S. economy and consumers if China closed off supply chain of critical minerals to the United States?
Can I add something to your previous question?
Yes.
Because I think when people look at permitting reform, they look at certain things or they have certain ideas about it. And I think that the smelter regulations in the Clean Air Act need to be considered as well, specifically for processing. I think the impact on U.S. customers if China was to take an action to suspend supply would be traumatic. We had a good analogy that we can look at, a good model from the pandemic of what happens when supply chains can't perform, and we saw all the implications of that. But we need to also understand that there's an alternative scenario for China's actions that are equally traumatic. China can build scale so fast. They can put so much volume on the market that they affect commodity prices. So we've been seeing them do this for a host of materials, whether it's rare earths, nickel, you name it. We're trying to invest here in a more expensive context, one that has delays, one that just is higher cost. We need higher commodity prices to support that. The Chinese volumes are important for the global economy, but they undermine investment in more expensive locations like the United States. That is a harsh reality.
In other words, we can't compete.
It is really difficult to compete unless we go back to what Chair Rogers brought up, that honest conversation. How honest are we really willing to be? How honest do y'all want us to be on this panel?
Right. Yeah, well, I think it's time to speak the truth here.
My truth, my personal truth on this is when I look at the mining industry, I think it's hard to deliver, especially on a greenfield project, a new project as opposed to a brownfield site.
Yeah.
My average is 20 years.
Yeah. Well, you know, American people,
It's a reality.
they expect when they flip that light switch on for the lights to come on. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And when that doesn't happen, something's going to get done. I'll assure you. Well, I have, thank you. I've run out of time. I got a lot more questions. I'm going to submit those for the record, if you don't mind responding to those so we can make this as a record. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.